How you doing, everybody? Jeremy Capone here from the ELLICSR Kitchen, and we also have
Stephanie Gladman, a registered dietitian from my home.
Awesome. Well, hope everyone is doing well. Social distancing, staying at home. I was actually just in the hospital doing some screening, some door screening. And I just, again, quick shout out to the UHN staff. They're doing an incredible job up there, keeping all our patients safe and staff safe. Again, kudos to them, shout out to them. Anyways, I thought after my shift, I'd come down here just to shoot a couple cooking videos. We've been getting a lot of questions about what to do with pantry staples and some quick and easy recipes that are still healthy. So Steph and I are obviously in different places, practicing social distancing. And we've got a few recipes that we're going to hopefully put out on our Twitter channel, YouTube channel, and Instagram over the next few weeks. Most of them will probably be from inside our own homes, but anytime that we are in the hospital, we'll try to get some videos done here too.
Yeah, so continue to send us anything that you might need, ingredients that you don't know what to do with, questions that you might have regarding food and safety. We're here to help you. Like Jeremy said, in today's recipe, we're really going to be focusing on some of those foods and those ingredients that you have for longer periods of time. So think of fresh things like carrots, onions, and garlic, anything that's frozen. These are really great staples to have. They're just as nutritious as fresh. And again, anything that's canned. So we're going to put it all together in a sauce that's Jeremy's created that's plant-based.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is sort of our plant-based take on kind of like a bolognese or a meat-style red sauce, tomato sauce. It's by no means traditional. I do not want to get roasted by all the hardcore no-nuts out there. I know that we will, but this is sort of our take on it, and we're using chickpeas, and just a can of chickpeas, and you can use dried chickpeas here too that are soaked overnight. But it's going to sort of give us that meat-like texture, and we're going to season it well so that we're getting more of those traditional flavors that you would in a meat sauce. So we're going to start off with a can of chickpeas, pretty simple, and we're going to drain that out.
Yeah, and draining and rinsing is a really great way to remove any excess sodium. So Jeremy's using a can that's already has low sodium option, but just know that when you do it yourself, drain and rinse it, it is removing at least 50% of the sodium that's already in there. So totally up to you, depending on what you could find in the grocery store these days. Just make sure that you drain and rinse. And of course, before opening that can, just make sure you wash it with soap and water.
Yeah, great point. The water from the chickpea can is actually a great ingredient on its own. Steph, I don't know if you ever used this. It's called aquafaba. And this is actually a cool little vegan egg white replacement. You can look online, you can check out some really, really great recipes of how to use this in baking and stuff. So we're trying not to throw out anything, we're trying to use everything. So that you can save in a jar and put it in the fridge and use it within the next few days. Okay, so I'm also crouching here. I don't know if this is my back, but we're trying to give you the best quality video possible. We're going to bring out some machinery for this task. You can definitely do this in a blender. You can chop it up by hand. Food processor, it's just going to make things so much easier for us, especially if we're short on time. And I'm going to go ahead and put the chickpeas in there. Perfect. And I'm going to pulse them up. Now, this is a little extra. If you have dried mushrooms, are going to give this chickpea and this sauce a really nice meaty flavor. They're going to bring a lot of that savoriness, or you may have heard of umami, that sort of nice, salty, rich savoriness. It's going to just help with the chickpea. So I'm just going to put some in here. If you don't have it, no worries. You can even add maybe like a little spoonful of miso. That'll give it some nice savoriness too. And we're going to pulse this up. I'm not making hummus. I don't want it to be super mushy or broken down, just until it resembles almost like a ground chicken texture. So small bits of the chickpea, but definitely not like smooth. Like we want it to be a little chunky, a little rustic. So that's pretty much all we got to do. And that's going to go into, sorry, Steph.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say that chickpeas are, we're using this plant-based technique, really always good in terms of getting some proteins in. Okay, so no matter where you are, you still want to create these balanced meals. So looking at making sure that you're getting enough protein in order to keep those energy levels up. Chickpeas are a great source. You're adding fiber as well. And like Jeremy said, as long as you're pulsing it to a certain texture that could mimic, potentially ground meat or ground poultry, you're getting a really good source of protein that you could add to either pastas or whatever you want to put over the sauce.
Perfect. Okay, so now this we're going to put into our pot. I've got it over medium heat, and I just added a little bit of olive oil. You can use grapeseed oil, any vegetable-based oil. And we're going to go in, and that's sizzle. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so that's going to go in. Again, it doesn't have to be completely cleaned out because we're going to use it a couple more times. So we'll stir that around, and we want to get a little bit of color on that. And then we're going to move in with some other aromatics. Again, use what you have. By no means is this recipe, set of rules that you have to follow. I don't want you running out to having to grab all these other ingredients. But if you have an onion, great. If you have some celery, beautiful. If you don't have fresh garlic, use dried garlic. Mm-hmm. Use what you have. I'm gonna put in.
So for this recipe, we're trying to incorporate those vegetables. We know that carrots are really great. They're high in vitamin A, which is a nutrient that can help support our immune system. So getting all those carrots in is great. But, you could put in any type of vegetable that's really gonna last longer. So like I mentioned earlier, garlic, onion, carrots, any type of potato even. These are vegetables that you can have for a longer period of time. They don't go badly quickly. So in these times, we really wanna focus on, limiting our trips to the grocery store, stocking up on the things that you do need so that you can meal plan appropriately. And that's really, one of the main things that we want to focus on is, just like in usual times when you're out at work and, having busy lives, it's important to meal plan. So thinking about, what's already in your pantry, what's already in your fridge or your freezer, and then using those ingredients. And if you are going out to the grocery store, same thing. Think about what you want to have for the week so that when you get there, you're not buying things on impulse, that you have what you need for the foods and the recipes that you need for that week.
All right, come back. So I just roughly chopped up the carrot, threw it in just into smaller chunks, and that way it's a little bit easier for your food processor to break it down. The garlic, I just smashed it, threw it in, and I got my onion ready to go. I'm actually going to do them separately because the carrots are going to take a little bit more time to break down. I don't want to turn the onion into like a liquidy mush. So I'm going to do the carrots first. A little bit smaller. Again, we're looking for small pieces similar to the chickpea size. Okay, so you guys see that? Small, nice little pieces. Beautiful. That's going to go in to the pot as well.
So in this recipe, of course, we're taking some time to prepare in advance. So taking stock of the ingredients, choosing a time throughout the day where you have that time to prepare, you know, something that's quick, easy, doesn't take too many ingredients to share. And then you have that for the week. And, you know, Jeremy and I were talking earlier about ways that we could limit the amount of time. And this is one that you could definitely freeze, right, Jer? So you could freeze it and have it for a later period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think meal planning, like Steph mentioned, is super important, especially now. Soups, stocks, stews, things that you can use multiple times are great items to freeze. And I can even show you after, actually, at the end of this, a freezing technique that I use for soups and stews that works really well. Okay, so onions in here, we're gonna pulse it up too. Any onion. I just have a regular cooking onion. But we're not gonna be too picky about that. Awesome, broken down, small pieces. If you have like celery or even fennel, you can add those vegetables in here as well. It's gonna provide a lot of flavor. I don't have them on me, so I'm not gonna use them. Again, now is not the time to stay super traditional, okay? You can break the rules, do your own interpretation. All right, so beautiful. We have sort of mirepoix in there, an onion, garlic, some carrots. We have our chickpeas, and I'm just giving them a little stir every once in a while. I have my setting to about a medium high. Sorry, my eyes are watering. That onion was really powerful. But you want to keep an eye on it. So I would go medium to medium high just to get a little bit of color. And I'll give you a quick look at this point. So that's what we're looking at. We want to get a little bit more color. We're going to add some seasoning right now. So we'll go with a little bit of salt. Just a little pinch of salt in there. Wow, those onions were so powerful. I am tearing up so much right now. Some oregano.
Yeah, so this is a really good time to use any of those dried herbs that you've got in the pantry. You know, might not be as easy to get fresh herbs at the moment right now. So, you know, certainly taking advantage of anything that you already have in stock that's dried. You know, always finding ways to boost the flavor of your foods with herbs and spices instead of sodium. You know, really boosting and enhancing any of the flavors is really a great idea in order to flavor your foods.
Awesome. I'm going to throw in some chili flakes too, because I like chili flakes. Give it a nice little punch. A little extra. Beautiful. Yeah, use what you have. This is a great time to add any of those dry spices, dry herbs. And we're going to stir it through. Beautiful. And we want to just get a little bit more color. So I would cook that down for maybe 3-4 minutes. Now again, Steph, like there's no reason we couldn't do this exact same recipe and use maybe a little bit of ground chicken or ground turkey or something like that.
Yeah, and again, like if there's something that you want to add, so if you do have fresh broccoli or I don't know, any type of fresh vegetable that you want to include in, go for it. You could even add some more frozen if you want. And just keeping in mind that, as always, especially in these times, it's important to, make sure that your meals are balanced. So we always talk about that plate, right? So getting a quarter of the plate coming from proteins, the other quarter coming from your whole grain starch, and then getting lots of color, right? So in this dish, we've got, the orange, the white, and you could put the sauce on top of whatever you want, whole grain pasta, anything really.
Yeah, I've used this actually as a nice little chili starter too. Add a lot of flavor and some nice texture as well. I'm going to add a little bit of tomato paste. Again, not necessary. I have it. Traditionally for a bolognese sauce, it would usually be tomato paste in either stock or water. You wouldn't even add like canned tomatoes or pureed tomatoes, but we're going to be doing a little bit of both today because I do have tomato puree, and we're going to add some tomato paste just to bump up that flavor a little bit more. So like a little squeeze, little tablespoon worth. Awesome. These ones in the tubes are great because you can use them, keep them in the fridge. If you do get the canned ones, once you open it, I would suggest transfer it to a little freezer bag. And you can keep that in the freezer and then just chip off a little piece here and there as you need. All right, so it's smelling really good. Steph's usually around to smell it, but unfortunately she's not.
Yes, I could picture it through the digital space.
But so that's what we're looking for. I don't know if you can tell, but definitely a lot more caramelization, a little bit more color on that. And we're good at this point to add our liquid. So again, you can go a little heavier on tomato paste and just add stock or even water. If you have tomato puree, so that is nothing added. Sometimes there might be a little bit of salt as a preservative, but otherwise it's just strained tomato pulp, no seeds, no skin. And you can find those in cans, you can find them in jars as well. Or even if you have just a can of chopped tomatoes, or these are whole tomatoes. I actually prefer the whole tomatoes in a recipe like this. You can use this as well. And this is shelf stable for a really long time. So again, a great pantry item to have. We're gonna go ahead and add the puree though. And it is, again, I'm not really measuring anything, to be honest. I don't think this is the recipe for that, but this is about 900 mils. But I'm also gonna add some water to this as well.
So I guess it just depends on how thick you want your sauce to be, right? So if you want it thicker,
exactly. So
not that much water added, and if you want it more thin, you add more water.
Yeah. So I'm adding about maybe a little bit more than half a cup more just of water. And like Steph mentioned, usually if there is meat in it, you would let it reduce for 1 to 2 hours, really, just until it's really nice and thick. For this, because there's nothing really raw in it, everything's just vegetables. We really just want to reduce it until we get to the consistency that we like, and so that all the flavors sort of come together. The longer that we cook it, the richer it's going to taste, the meatier it's going to taste as well. So I've added all my liquid. If you find that it's still very thick, then just add a little bit more water to thin it out. Because you want this to simmer, even though it's just chickpeas, you want this to simmer for at least 20, 30 minutes, just to get really nice and rich. So I'm going to turn the heat down. Sorry? Oh, Steph, I thought you said something. Okay, so it's bubbling now. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to reduce the heat down to low. And whatever setting that is for you. So for me, I'm going to put it down to 2.5. And I just want this to have small bubbles. So big bubbles, it's boiling, probably too high. Small bubbles, gentle bubbles is what we want. It's more like a simmer. And we want that to reduce until it's nice and thick and rich, like a nice little meat sauce.
Awesome.
That's it. Like,
Yay! So
awesome.
Easy.
Yes.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be back with more recipes.
Thanks, everyone, and stay tuned for more videos. Take care.